Good morning. Welcome to I don't know if it's morning, whenever you're watching this. I hope the time is good for you. Anyhow, welcome back to the Then and Now Bible study. We're going through the book of Mark. Today we're going to be talking about a prophet without honor. And so I need to make the screenshot, the clip, the thumbnail. There we go. That's the thing. So hold on. Give me a minute. Let me make the thumbnail. All right, I think that'll work for a thumbnail. Anyhow, so the last couple of weeks, as we have been going through some incidences about faith, and this is we rarely put this incident with the stuff that happens in chapter 5 because that's all chapter 5 and then this is chapter 6. But really, and honestly, the way Mark writes it, this is kind of the end of this series about kind of stuff about faith. This is kind of the contrast event, and so let's switch over to it and let's take a look at it. And so we have what we're going to talk about today, the prophet without honor. But before we do that, I want to talk about the things that kind of came before this. So we have talking about faith of a mustard seed. Then we have Jesus calming the storm. And this is largely about the disciples' faith. The disciples' faith in whereas they have seen Jesus work miracles in other people's lives, this seems to be the first time that the miracle happens to them. And they're terrified, even though they're with Jesus, the one that can calm the storm, and he calls them out on their faith. And he says, "Quiet, be still." Or he says, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" So again, we have the central theme here is faith. We go to the demon possessed man in the Gerasenes. And what we see here, and it's kind of a weird way of thinking about this, but we see this demon who, or this legion of demons who absolutely knows beyond a shadow of a doubt, they completely believe that Jesus has the power and authority over them, where they don't even challenge that. They just beg for mercy. Um, and here you have the next part is what we talked about last week was Jairus's daughter and the woman with the issue of blood, and we have how faith, the healing doesn't matter the socioeconomic class, the where they are in society, that doesn't matter. What matters is faith, and through the faith of Jairus and through the faith of this woman, they both receive this healing from a faith that is like such a strong faith where this woman believes that all I have to do is touch the hem of his garment and I'll be healed, versus a faith that's like, my daughter's dead already. Can you really do anything? And he's like, hey, let me, just, they were shocked when it happened. So you can see that there was this like, I believe, but at the same time, I'm kind of, if this is actually going to work. And it's still enough faith. And so all of these events talk about faith, and it shows Jesus' power over the weather, shows Jesus' power over demons, shows Jesus' power over infirmities and sickness, and it shows even Jesus' power over death and what can be accomplished through faith. And that is the big important thing that we are looking at in this passage. And so now we get down to chapter 6 and verse 1, and the script flips a little bit. And again, y'all are going to have to pardon my voice. Lauren had a soccer game Saturday night where she scored her first goal. I preached Sunday, and then Cade had a flag football game in the Superdome. And so when my kids are playing sports, like I get rowdy, and so y'all can. I'm sure that surprises nobody, but I get rowdy when my kids are playing sports. I'm not that dad, right? I'm very positive and cheering and everything, but I'm cheering. I'm cheering loud. I'm cheering for my kids. So anyhow, my voice, it's you just have to bear with my voice. I know it sounds awful today, but it is what it is. So let's read this passage. And as I'm reading, I really want you to look at the stark contrast from what's going on here to what we have heard in the past several weeks. Chapter 6, verse 1, it says, Jesus left there and went to his hometown accompanied by his disciples. When the Sabbath came, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were amazed. Where did this man get these things, they asked. What is this wisdom that has been given to him? What are these remarkable miracles he is performing? Isn't this carpenter? Isn't this Mary's son and the brother of James, Joseph, Judah, and Simon? Aren't these his sisters who are with us? And they took offense at him. And Jesus said to him, a prophet is not without honor except in his own town, among his relatives, and in his own home. In verse 5, he could not do any miracles there except lay his hands on a few sick people and heal them. He was amazed at their lack of faith. So this is kind of a wild passage, and it has been misused. Sometimes it's been misused by word of faith healers, especially wherever it says that he could not do miracles there. Whereas it's more if he could. Mark writes he could not, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that. That's one of those times that we have to use some Bible interpretation rules whenever we look at some things. So let's start off here in the beginning of verse 6, and it says, Jesus left there and went to his hometown, accompanied by his disciples. And when the Sabbath came, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were amazed. So the first thing that we point out is that this is not like the mediocrity of what happens here is not because of Jesus. Like, Jesus goes back to his hometown fully in the same way and approaching this the same way that he would have anywhere else. He goes to the synagogue, he begins teaching boldly. And even in this next passage where it says, where did he get these things? What wisdom has been given to him? What are these remarkable miracles he's performing? It's clear that Jesus is going full Jesus. All right. He is not like, well, let me tone it back, being that I'm home around my people. Now he's going full Jesus on them, right? He's teaching boldly. He's doing the miracles that he's doing, and people are amazed at the teaching. And the amazement here, the interesting thing about a bold teaching or even a miraculous sign is the way that it will be perceived, the way that it will be accepted. Okay. So I said, where did this man get these things? They ask. What is this wisdom that is being given to him? What are these remarkable things that he is teaching and performing? So they acknowledge the boldness of his teaching. They acknowledge the wisdom in which he is teaching. They acknowledge that the same things that everybody else has acknowledged, that he teaches with authority, that he doesn't teach like the teachers of the law who rely on the authority of others, that he comes in his own authority, that he is teaching on his own authority. They completely acknowledge that, but then instead of going the way they acknowledge it, but then the way they respond to it. And the way they respond to it is this. Isn't this carpenter? Isn't this Mary's son, the brother of James, Joseph, Judah, and Simon? Aren't his sisters here with him? And they took offense at him. And so even though the miracles were the same, their response, they acknowledge that the miracles and the teaching are the same. Their response to this is completely different. And so with that, I want us to kind of get this understanding of the state of the American culture, the state of the Western culture. Why don't we see miracles in the same way in the Western culture? And I think some of it has to do with this very thing. I'm gonna pause, and I noticed that my microphone, I had to change the settings on my microphone. I got a new microphone. It's this like massively huge Blue Yeti, and so I'm still kind of trying to figure it out. But it's unbelievably big, and now I think I'm a little bit too hot, so let me back this down a little bit. And again, I'm not cutting any of these videos, so how they come out is how they come out, and I think that's a good sound check right there. But anyhow, I think this really speaks to where we are as a culture, in that we have when miraculous signs happen in our culture, they are immediately explained away. You can I know of people who have been eat up with cancer from head to toe, and they go to they get prayed over, and they go to the doctor, and next thing you know, the cancer is completely gone. And it's, even the doctors go, that's nothing short of a miracle. And yet it is explained away. We still find ways in our culture to diminish it and explain it away and go, oh no, there's got to be a reason. We don't know the reason, but there's got to be a reason. And even the miraculous signs and wonders that are all around us, our culture explains away. And something that we have to understand about miracles and signs and wonders for Jesus, and also for the disciples, even into the early church. The point of this was less often the point of these miracles were for the person receiving the miracle. More often, the point of this miracle was to bring credibility to the message of Jesus, or the message of the gospel in the case of the apostles. And so whenever these healings are not, and in fact, whenever the healing is for the purpose of the person receiving it, typically the Gospels will tell us that Jesus has compassion on this person, or Jesus is moved with compassion for the crowds, and he begins healing out of compassion rather than healing strictly for the purpose of bringing authority to his message. And so with that thought process in mind, we have to we have to look at this and go, all right, well, when the healings and the miracles, they are not performing, they are not doing what they're intended to do to bring credibility to the message of God, they're not going to, then why would Jesus do them? And so again, as we go on and we get down here, it says, and Jesus said to them, a prophet is not without honor except his own town, among his own relatives, in his own home. He could not do any miracles there except lay his hands on a few sick people and heal him. He was amazed at their lack of faith. And so again, this is not that faith is the magical thing that brings about miracles, so much as miracles are designed to, the point of these miracles was to give authority to the message, and to bring to as a proof, as an evidence to back up what Jesus was saying. And when it's not working that way, Jesus goes, there's no point in continuing to do miracles. In fact, that's the thing that he would tell the Pharisees when they would ask for a sign. Jesus is like, I'm not going to give you a sign. The only sign you're getting is the sign of Jonah. And in other words, if you come to me saying, I believe, I just need help, I will give you the sign that will help you with your faith. However, if you come to me saying, I don't believe and I won't believe unless I get a sign, then Jesus says that you're a crooked and wicked generation that needs a sign. And so here, when he says that he could not do any miracles here, that's what Mark says. He says he can't do any miracles. So that leads us to a really good, let's look at this. And this is one of those times that I would, typically what I want to do in this Bible study is go strictly to just what Mark is saying and not bring in other gospels and not really bring in intertextuality. But there's sometimes you just have to, okay? And I'm not saying that Mark is wrong, but what I'm saying here is what did Mark mean by this? Did he mean that he can't, or did he mean something a little bit more, is there some nuances here in what he's talking about? So one of the things that as we are translating the Bible or interpreting the Bible would be a better way of saying that, we remember to go up and down, right? And so up and down is context. And we look at the context of what's been going on. And for this, we go all the way back to the storm, and we see a lack of faith there, but Jesus still did a miracle, even though there was a lack of faith. We see Jairus having a lack of faith in this, and the people around him, there was a lack of faith, and Jesus still did the miracle. So it's not like a lack of faith prevents Jesus from doing any miracles, okay? It's not like when we don't have faith, Jesus goes, well, I wish I could help you, but Jesus is God is sovereign, and he can do what he wants to do. And so we see that in context, we see not that Mark's contradicting himself. It's just that's not the kind of the as we kind of hash out what he's saying, that's not really what he's meaning by that. Then the other thing, so once we go up and down in the context of what we're talking about, then we go side to side. We go across the rest of the Bible. So it's context, the context, and then we consider the rest of what the Bible says. It's, I had this earlier. Anyhow, but we have to go through the rest of Scripture. And what does the rest of Scripture say? So this is like this weird thing where it says that Jesus could not do miracles there. Well, is anything like this anywhere else in the Bible? Is there anywhere else in the Bible that puts this type of limitation on God? And the hard answer is no. There's nowhere else in the Bible that puts this type of hard limitation on God. And so you go, okay, that's clearly not what that means. That's, if there was other places in the Bible that, could back this up, if this was the general message that goes throughout the Bible, then yes, we could say that's what that means. But that's not the general message that goes through the Bible. That's not the general message that goes through the New Testament. The general message that goes through the New Testament in regard to this is not that Jesus could not do miracles, it's that he would not do miracles. And in fact, I believe it's Matthew's account, that's the verbiage that's used in Matthew, is that he would not do miracles. And so now we ask, why did Mark write he could not do any miracles there instead of he would not do miracles there? Was Mark wrong? Was Mark incorrect? If Mark was written first, was this actually the way it is, and everybody else softened that to he could not or to he would not? No, it's simple. Mark is just putting it this way to emphasize the fact that miracles will not happen without faith. That if you are in the way that they are, doubting God, and again, not in the way that like Jairus doubts. Jairus has some doubts, and he goes, "Man, I'm not sure about this whole Jesus thing, but my actions are gonna back up that I believe." That's not what the type of doubt I'm talking about. I'm talking about this type of doubt, like wait, isn't this the carpenter? I mean, is Jesus really who he says? Is Jesus really the Son of God? This is a doubt that goes deeper than just, I'm not sure if I'm not sure if this will work, down to this guy's not anything special. This is Jesus. Jesus isn't anybody special. And that's the type of faith that Jesus goes, yeah, if you're going to see things, if you're going to acknowledge that my teaching is amazing, and you're going to acknowledge that signs are being performed, and yet you're going to explain them away. No, I'm not going to continue to do these things. And Mark, because this is what this is what this whole section is about. It's about this contrast between those who have faith and what Jesus will do whenever people have faith versus what people will do when he doesn't have faith. He uses this very strong verbiage here of that Jesus could not do miracles. Not to say that Jesus was limited in power, but to bring a very a very hard line, no, Jesus, he would not do it, but would not do it to the point there it was almost as if he could not, even though he very much so could. And we get that from the totality of the rest of Scripture, and somewhat through the context of the passages before this. We see that even when there was doubt among the disciples, Jairus, what have you, Jesus could still perform miracles in those situations. So what does that mean for us? This is what this means for us. We live in a culture that is not convinced of Jesus through signs and wonders. And Jesus will heal people for the purpose of just having compassion on that person. Jesus will heal people for the purpose of hearing our prayers and seeing our tears, having compassion on us. Jesus will do that. However, the main reason why Jesus healed people was as an evidence to those who are lost. And whenever those who are lost will not accept the healings, will not accept the miracles, I believe from Scripture, and I believe from, just we see this lived out, Jesus stops doing miracles. He stops performing miraculous acts. Now, you go to a third world country, you go to, places on the cutting edge of the gospel, places where miraculous things are more normalized and will not be explained away. You better believe God is doing miraculous signs in those places. The stories that are coming out of places that are on the cutting edge of the gospel, God is moving in this way. God is moving in a way that where he is making his power known, and people are responding to that in amazing ways. Whenever you start talking about the explosion of Christianity in the Southern Hemisphere, it is not because of great preaching. There's some great preaching that is going on, but it's because there are signs and wonders being accompanied by on the cutting edge of the gospel. That is not happening in our culture, and I doubt that it will happen in our culture. So what do we have to do? What is it if we can't rely on signs and miracles because they get explained away? We live in a culture that I believe here Jesus is amazed at their lack of faith. That a huge lack of faith in our culture. How do we minister here? Well, whereas our culture will explain away that, somebody will be eaten up with cancer and then they'll be healed miraculously, and our culture will explain that away. What our culture also doesn't explain away as much is a marriage that just works. A man and a woman who a man that loves his wife as Christ loves the church, and a woman who lovingly submits to her husband, children who honor their mother and father, a father who leads his family and equips and uplifts his children in godly instruction. Like the culture doesn't have an answer for that, and they see that lived out, and that's where they're amazed. That's where they go, oh my goodness, look at that. That is so different. I'm going to tell you, and I see this. I see this on a personal level. People in our culture are much more amazed at families that work right, friendships that work right, community, a godly community that works the way that the Bible instructs it to work. They are much more amazed and convinced by that than I believe they would be by any miraculous sign or wonder. And that's why God has different, Jesus through his power knows different cultures, and he knows different ways that different cultures are going to be reached. And I'm going to tell you, you live out the gospel. You live out the biblical structure for a family, and you get around people, they will be amazed by your family. They will be amazed by your lifestyle. They will be amazed by your community. And so I encourage you that even though, we can go around healing people and that will get explained away, having a biblical family that works, it baffles this culture in a great way. In some ways it's going to be, you're still going to have those that even the Pharisees saw these signs and said, hey, this is of the Beelzebub. So you're still going to have those that are going to, deny even that, but the vast majority of this culture is going to look at our families, look at our communities, look at our friendships, look at the way that we perform at work when we do that. Look at the way that we just live our Christian life, and they will not have an answer for it. They will not be able to explain it away. So that's my encouragement to you. Live that out. Live that out. Our culture is just about impervious to signs and wonders, and I believe that's why you don't see a ton of signs and wonders in our culture. You do see signs and wonders in the Southern Hemisphere, on the cutting edge of the gospel. Here, what gets through to people is just seeing the gospel lived out. That's really the thing that gets through to people. So that's what I want y'all to do. That's what I want to see in everybody. So, all right, that is the then. And the then is very much so connected with the now in this case, because I believe that we live in this culture. We live in this place where signs and wonders are just explained away to the point that God says there's no point in me doing them outside of compassion for a person or compassion for a loved one. It does not bring, it doesn't convince anybody. And so where the signs and wonders aren't happening, our church family and our families step up, and we are the sign and wonder. Your life is the sign and wonder that people look at and go, how does this happen? How does a family live like this together? And so it's my encouragement to you. If your family's not there, this priority number one is let's get my family there. Let's work on winning the hearts of my family and getting my family there. But anyhow, guys, listen, I love y'all. Once again, thank y'all so much for joining me. Sorry about the microphone getting it worked out. Hopefully it's not too bad whenever I've kind of watched over this. Do all the YouTube things, like, subscribe. If this is if this is encouraging to you, helping you, I challenge you to share this, and put your friends and family onto it. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I do feel like this particular Bible study is one that whenever I look at different Bible studies that are out there, especially kind of verse by verse, section by section, I feel like this is one that really goes deep, but in a simple way. And what I try to put I try to put stuff on the bottom shelf. I try to make it super simple, but also, in depth and give a lot of value to it, and it not just be surface level kind of stuff. And so if you see that and that resonates with you, share it with your friends, because like I said, I do this for my church. I do this for my Bethel people. But also, man, I would love for these teachings, like just good Bible teaching, just to get out there, because there's so much bad Bible teaching, right? Anyhow, love you guys, and we will catch you next week. Bye, everybody.